Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. The set of The Chase buzzed with its usual energy, bright lights, humming cameras, and a murmuring crew that moved like clockwork behind the scenes. It was a Thursday, but it could have been any day. For Shaun Wallace, the Dark Destroyer, each filming block blurred into the next, a sequence of questions, quips, and victories. But this particular day, something pressed on his chest, heavier than any trivia burden ever could. As he adjusted his trademark black suit in front of the dressing room mirror, his gaze lingered longer than usual. The sharp angles of his jawline and proud brow had not softened, but something in his eyes had dimmed. Behind the fierce intellect and imposing presence lay something unspoken, something he had hidden even from himself. Weeks earlier, ITV executives approached Shaun with an idea, a special segment called Behind the Chaser, meant to reveal the more personal sides of Britain's favorite quizmasters. While Mark Labbett and Anne Hegarty had eagerly agreed, Shaun had been hesitant. "I don't do emotional fluff," he'd told them curtly. But the producers had persisted. "You've inspired millions, Shaun. It's not fluff, it's legacy." The word lingered in his mind like a bell that refused to stop ringing. Legacy. What legacy? The black barrister from Harlesden, who made it onto primetime television? The man who memorized law books to escape the streets of London's tougher corners? He agreed, reluctantly. The cameras rolled in a cozy room far from the bright chaos of the Chase set. Shaun sat in a navy jumper, noticeably more casual, stripped of his chaser persona. "So, Shaun," the interviewer began gently, "what was life like before the chase?" Shaun exhaled. He'd rehearsed this. "Ordinary," he said. "Working class. My mum was a Jamaican immigrant who worked as a seamstress. My dad drove a minicab. They worked hard. We didn't have much." He smiled, but it was the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "And school?" Shaun laughed, a low and slightly bitter sound. "I wasn't supposed to make it out of Harlesden. I was dyslexic, though no one knew that then. I got called lazy. I got called dumb. But I wasn't. I just couldn't read like the others. So I listened, memorized, held things in my head." He paused. "Life has not been easy." Shaun didn't often revisit the dark days, but that night, alone in his London flat, they came flooding back. The streets of his childhood weren't friendly. Gangs loitered on corners. Opportunities were scarce. Friends disappeared into trouble, or worse, into silence. He'd walk past the same bus stop where a friend, Michael, had been stabbed at 15 for his trainers. But there had also been his mother's fierce love. "You are better than this world wants you to believe," she used to say, stroking his head while he fell asleep to the sound of her sewing machine. It was she who pushed him toward books. "You want to escape, Shaun? Escape through your mind." So he did. The segment aired 2 weeks later. Viewers were moved. Social media lit up with messages of support and admiration. But Shaun felt hollow. He began to avoid public appearances. Bradley Walsh noticed first. "You all right, mate?" he asked gently after filming a particularly long episode. Shaun forced a grin. "Just tired." But it wasn't fatigue. It was depression, lingering, persistent. It clung to him like a fog that wouldn't lift. He had buried so much for so long. His father's cold disapproval, the racial slurs in the courtroom, the years of pretending his self-worth came from being the clever one. And then came the straw that broke him. His mother passed away quietly in her sleep. The woman who had been his anchor, his fortress, gone. He didn't cry at the funeral, not in front of others. He stood stoically beside his siblings, suited and unreadable, the way the British are trained to mourn. But that night he wept, loud and long, for hours, as if grieving not just her death, but everything he had locked away over decades. In the days after her passing, Shaun cleaned out her home. Inside a tin box he found letters, dozens of them, all written to him. She had written them over the years, starting from the day he entered law school. "Dear Shaun, today I saw you in court. You stood so tall. I was proud. I didn't say it then. I don't always know how, but I was proud. You are strong, my son, but even the strong must rest. Please don't wear that mask forever. Shaun clutched the letters, tears falling freely now. He had worn the mask for so long he no longer knew who he was without it. It was a panel event on mental health and television, and Shaun had been invited as a guest. He almost didn't go, but something stirred him. Perhaps her letters, perhaps the exhaustion. When it was his turn to speak, he stood at the podium and removed his glasses. I've played a role on TV for over a decade, he began, but let me tell you who I am when the cameras stop rolling. He spoke of dyslexia, of grief, of being a black man in British law courts when people still crossed the street to avoid him, of the burden of perfection, of nights he lay awake wondering if his accomplishments were enough to silence the doubts instilled in him as a boy. Life has not been easy, he said, but it has been mine, and I am still here. The next day, headlines blazed. Shaun Wallace opens up. Life has not been easy. The heartbreaking truth behind the Dark Destroyer. Viewers flooded ITV with letters. Young black boys in Brixton sent drawings of Shaun as a superhero. Lawyers reached out, thanking him for being the face that gave them courage. Even chasers, usually known for their teasing, sent heartfelt messages. Anne Hegarty left him a note on his dressing room door. We all wear armor, Shaun. Yours has protected many. But even nights rest. Dinner tonight? My treat. In the months that followed, Shaun began speaking at schools. He started a scholarship in his mother's name for underprivileged law students. He even wrote a second book, not about quizzing, but about resilience. He laughed more on set. He hugged Bradley without prompting. He let Mark Labbit beat him at chess, on purpose. And when asked during an interview what his proudest moment was, he didn't mention the chase. He said, "My proudest moment was telling the truth." The truth is, everyone is chasing something. For Shaun Wallace, it was never fame or applause. It was the quiet dignity of survival, the reclamation of identity, and the healing of old wounds. He had once chased perfection. Now he chased peace. And in doing so, he became not just a quiz master, but a man whose strength lay not in knowing all the answers, but in daring finally to share the question. The world hadn't heard the last from Shaun Wallace. With every school he visited, every hand he shook, and every story he told, he made it clear. Knowledge may win you games, but truth wins you life. And Shaun Wallace, at long last, was truly living. Acknowledgement dedicated to those who carry invisible burdens and to every child who dreams beyond their postcode. This is for you. Sometimes the chase isn't about the win, it's about the courage to keep running. Shaun Wallace.